Hello friends. Today I'd like to talk to you about sacred space, what that means, and how we create what we consider to be sacred space. First of all, let me explain to you what is meant when I say or use the word sacred space. In the course of our work, whether it be creating magic or doing ritual, or even the times that we are engaged in our personal practice and just simply sitting in meditation, there are times when we want to create a very special sort of container. We want to have something that allows us to rise above where we are in the mundane world, meaning that if we're in our bedroom, we may want to create a container or a sacred space that more resonates and resembles a temple. If we are in a public space that is used frequently, we may also wish to create sacred space or a container so that whatever energies have flowed through that space then become purified and changed in accord with the type of work that we want to do. Some of the reasons why we would create this container or sacred space could be for purposes of protection, could be for purposes of separation and boundary, as I said, separating us and our work from what the mundane exterior environment is, and also for creating a temple of sorts, which means that if you wish to create your own personal temple, a construct that is not necessarily in a room or a physical location, you can also use the different modalities that are included in creating sacred space to form this temple on the astral. This then becomes a place of working. It becomes your energy container so that what you are allowing to arise in this space is used in a way that will help to open you to the various other realms, and also, if you call into that space beings or deities or the elements of the alchemical elements and the quarter gates as well, you're also allowing a safe and usable working space that is out of the ordinary. It becomes something extraordinary. We all are familiar with casting a circle and its relationship to witches and witchcraft. That is something that seems to be a staple, that, you know, all witches are thought to be able to cast circles, and it is within that circle that various types of work are accomplished. This is one type of sacred space, but it's not the only type of sacred space that there is. You can also create a bubble or an egg or a sphere of pure white light, or actually any color light that you wish to use, that then can surround you when you are doing contemplative work, even when you are doing your magical work. If you don't want to go through all of the formalities of creating or casting a circle, you can simply draw up within yourself the image of yourself being surrounded by a brilliant white light that glows, that contains all of the properties that a normal cast circle would also contain as well. So let's go back to casting a circle. The thought behind casting a circle is that you are actually not casting a flat circle, even though as you're walking around the perimeter of the space and whatever size or dimension you make the diameter of that circle, it's not a flat one-dimensional thing. And in fact, what you are actually creating is a sphere. So you would imagine yourself as though you were laying down the edge or the perimeter of a sphere, that then as you empower it and enliven it, it stretches up and it reaches down, and it literally becomes the as above, so below that we talk so much about. And in this sphere of energy, you are sending your intention, you're sending your purpose towards the action of what is called rising on the planes. What this means is that there are various planes of existence. There is our physical world. There are other dimensions that are comprised and components that are comprised in the greater world itself. And when we rise on the planes, what we are doing is lifting ourselves up out of the physical realms, out of the mundane experience. And depending on what the intention of that work is, we are elevating ourselves up to a place where deity is able to come into our circle, is able to come into that sphere of art, as it is sometimes called, and assist us with the work or witness the work. We're also creating a specific type of container that can also hold the energies that are held behind what we call the quarter gates of the elements. So as you are laying down this circle, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in future videos, as well as I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few moments. As you are laying down this circle, you are envisioning it as becoming a beacon to those other worlds. You are filling it with pieces of your own energy that are commingled and intertwined with that of the universal energy, and the two together are helping to form and create this boundary or this space of working. Now, when we as witches create a circle of art, our intention is not one of keeping out all the ugly buglies. It's more about containing the energies that are within it so that they may be dispersed in an appropriate way. And by default, it actually does become a barrier in that you will attract into it what it is you send out in like resonance, meaning that if the intention of your working is one of a productive nature, then what you are going to attract into that space, that sphere, which then almost becomes like a filter, a net, you could say almost like an alarm system like you'd have for your home, that will alert you to other energies that are perhaps coming around that space that may be curious, may wish to participate, but you have control because you've created it yourself over what actually enters into that space of circle. If you were doing high ceremonial magic, that would be a different thing entirely, because for some of that work, the sphere of art that is created is actually independent of where that magician or that ceremonialist is standing, because they are calling into it an energy that they don't wish to commingle with. So that's one of the differences there. So the properties or the protocol of setting down a circle or casting a sphere of art, often the easiest way to picture this is to imagine you drawing up within yourself a blue flame of energy. That blue cobalt flame of energy is similar to what you see on a gas stove when you first light it and it flickers up. It's an energy that is pure. The blue resonates actually with the true cobalt color of the sun itself. We always imagine it as being yellowish or red, but it's actually cobalt blue. So it lends strength. It's also a color of healing. And as you are walking around from one point that you've designated to the next, completing that 360-degree sphere, you are laying down a blue fire or a blue flame of energy. Now, how you lay that down is up to you. In most cases, you would use your athame for that, or you could use your wand, or in some instances, if you have enough room, you can also use a sword. Generally, the thought is that in beginning practice, you would use your athame. It's, as we talked about in the video that I did about the tools, it's pointed, it fits very neatly and nicely in your hand. The energy that is contained within your own physical being flows through that blade once you've been using it for a little bit and you've attuned it to yourself. And so it's very easy for you to use that blade, point it down towards the floor as you're scribing and walking around the circle. You can quietly do this. You can make up a witch's rune, which is a sort of spell that usually has rhyming components to it. You can just simply say, which I have often done, something like naught but love shall enter and naught but love shall leave. And I repeat that as I walk around the circle from point A all the way around 360 degrees back to point A again. Traditionally, the thought is that the circle should be 9 feet in diameter. That's not always practical or realistic. I have often cast my circle in a very small room, and as long as I have the circumference of the circle, whatever that is, and I can stand in the center of it, that's really all that I'm interested in, or that is important to me. So you've laid down this blue flame, you've gone from point A back around to point A again. Breathe into that space and imagine those flames rising up to encompass a dome on the top and rising down to encompass a dome on the bottom. What will happen is it does not remain a flame. It actually becomes a beautiful veiling of luminescent color that surrounds you. And as you become more adept at this, and one of the things you can do to kind of test it is to go to the boundaries of it and just quiet your mind and see if you can sense where that energy is ending. There should be a little bit of a resistance as you're pushing against it. The next step, if you choose to do so, and this is not a necessity, would be to go to each of the cardinal directions. Each of the cardinal directions represent a gate to the element that is held at that cardinal direction. So, in most cases, we begin in the east and move to the south, move to the west, and move to the north. In some cases, you would begin in the north and move around, but you always start and end in the same place. It doesn't really matter which of those cardinal directions you pick, but east and north are traditionally the ones that you would begin with. When you are envisioning this idea of opening up quarter gates, think and see if you can conjure this up in your mind. You've laid a sphere of art. You've laid a circle. For this instance, just think of it as a circle. Now, when you come back to that point A again, you are actually going to lay down a square in that space of the circle. The square being each point, because there are 4 equilateral points that are held that are aligned with the cardinal directions. So what you're doing is creating a very powerful sigil that is then seen as a beacon on the astral. The circle is the circle of eternity, and the square actually becomes the cube of foundation. The number 4 relates to those properties of energy where everything is in equanimity with each other. Everything provides the support on all 4 sides of it. So if you were going to add the quarter casting to this, you will have finished laying down your sphere. You go back to point A, which for these purposes, let's just say is the east. You stand facing the eastern direction, out, away from the center of the circle, facing out. And this would be the point where you would call up all of the things within you that resonate with the element of the east, which is the air. It is mind, it is intellect, it is actually the blade that you are using. You would stand before what will soon be a gate that will be opened. You would envision in your mind's eye, literally, some sort of a gate. It could be a doorway, it could be a window, whatever it is that you feel comfortable with. And as you are standing there, drawing up all of this energy that you associate with and equate to the element of air, or the quarter gate of the east, you would be imagining that, and those words, traveling out through whatever sort of structure you have set up, a gate, a door, a window, whatever, moving beyond it. You would imagine that what's on the other side of that, because remember, we're now in a sphere of art, which means that we're not in normal mundane space. So whatever is on the other side of that you are calling into your space is hearing what you are saying. And as like attracts like, as you perhaps use a hand gesture, because visualization and being able to see something is very helpful, as you use a hand gesture of parting that gate or opening that door or window, you imagine that energy coming into the space of your circle, passing through you, passing around you, and filling and lending its energies to what already is within that space. You would then move sunwise, or Jessel as we say. You would move in alignment with the sun, and you would move to the quarter of the south. South relates to will, to action, to fire. You would do exactly the same thing, calling up within yourself all of those things that you relate to as being fire, as being action, as you exerting your will in a certain situation. You would imagine, again, whatever structure you've created, a gate, a door, a window. You would imagine on the other side of that what is in resonance and of positive nature, reflecting back to you and hearing that. And again, you would open that gate and you would welcome those energies into your circle. You would do that again for the west. The west relates to water, to the heart, and to the emotions. And you would do the similar thing in the north, which relates to anything that is manifest, physical being, physical form, any of those things. And again, open that gate. And you would complete that process, because everything needs to have an ending and a beginning and a new ending and a new beginning. You would end up back at your quarter of the east, feeling all of those energies, all four quarters, the cube of foundation now filling your sphere of art with all of those energies. This is a very powerful thing, and what I also usually do as one additional step is to then go directly to the center of the circle that I have cast. Standing in the center, I call to all within me that is of the higher nature and that is my spirit. I call to that energy so that that becomes the anchor, and actually I, in my highest form, become that anchor, so that I now am commanding and also designating that I have mastery over all of those other elements that are filling my space that I've created. Another way to look at calling in these quarter energies is that by doing this, you are calling in your mind, represented by the east. You're calling in your will to action, represented by the south. You are calling in your heart and your emotion, represented by the west. And you are also acknowledging your physical corporeal form and your ability to manifest by calling in the north. At that point in my circle, depending on what the work may be, I may also offer up an invocation or a calling to deity or deities that I may be working with, and then everything would proceed from there. This is a much more formal way that I've just described to you. It is not necessary to go through all of these steps. You can actually just simply cast the sphere of art and not call in any of the elemental energies, or call in any deity for that matter as well, and still be successful in the work that you're doing. The most important part in all of this is your intention. What your intentions are and how strongly your desire, your mind, your heart and your will are on board with what those intentions are. If you do not want to do something quite so formal as casting this circle and calling in the quarter energies, and then perhaps even calling in deities, as I said, you can simply create a sphere of light that surrounds you. Usually I use this technique or this protocol for those times when I want to do meditative work that involves me reaching out to a specific deity, so that I have more of a pure space for us to meet in. I conjure this up as our temple space, where the two of us can interact and commingle our energies. Doing this is very, very simple, and you can actually do this anywhere. In a nature setting, no one will know what you're doing. You can do it in the space and privacy of your own home. You can do this anywhere, in the car. I've even gone out to my car at lunchtime and done this. And you imagine closing your eyes, using your inner screen and your perception, that's the third eye between your brow space. You imagine that you are surrounded by a white, pure light of brilliant energy. You can begin this as a simple dot that you see that expands into multiple dots. You can see it as a casing or a veiling that begins to twirl or swirl around you. Whatever works for you is the most important thing to use as the vehicle for directing and guiding this. And you breathe into this space. Breath is very important. Energy follows awareness, and breath cultivates and helps to support that awareness. So breathe into it. Each inhalation could be a point for you to find the stillness within, and each exhalation could expand this out. You may make it as large as you wish to make it. You can research and look to see what certain colors mean. You can fill it with certain colors. If you are doing this with the intention, let's just say for healing, you could fill it with blue light and blue energy. Blue is a very healing color, as is orange as well. That is also a very healing color. If you are doing it for deeper spiritual connection, you could fill it with a beautiful royal deep blue, or a deep royal purple color as well. Or you can just simply leave it the brilliant white light. You can do this and expand it out to almost be the size of what your circle would have been, without the cumbrance of having to lay it down formally and or call in energies. So this is another option that you have for creating sacred space. Beyond that, what we consider to be sacred space is anywhere that we do our divine work. So I'm going to expand on that a little bit, in including the fact that where I am sitting now, I'm out in nature. I'm at the building that we normally use for our open workshops and our rituals. This is sacred space. Every time I step anywhere that there is nature, which is everywhere, even in a concrete building, it is built on nature itself. It is sacred space, which means that I am not limited to just the container of a sphere or the bubble of a brilliant white light to do the work that I need to do as a witch and in my practice. Now, going back to, if you have cast a large circle or whatever size circle and called in quarter energies, you want to make sure that you always dismiss and offer up gratitude in the reverse order that you laid everything down. So what that means is, if I have created a circle and I've opened quarter gates and called in the energies of the elements, and I've also called in deity, when I have completed whatever work it is that I'm doing, first thing that I would do would be to offer up gratitude and thanks to the deity that were present, and I would bid them hail and farewell. The next thing I would do would be to go around to each of the quarter gates in the exact order that I set them up. Beginning in the east, I would go to that eastern gate. I would thank the energies of air, the energies that help to inspire my mind and open me to a different perspective. And as I'm saying these words, I would imagine those energies being drawn back through me, back through that gate that is open when I get to it, because I've opened it and it remained open for the whole whatever working that I did. Imagine that energy returning to its realm. I might even say something like, I bid you now to return to your airy realms. I would make a gesture of closing that gate. I would offer up gratitude and say, The gate of the east is closed, and I bid you hail and farewell. I would do that in turn for each of the gates, moving next to the south, moving next to the west, next to the north, back again to the east. And as I stand at the east, the gates now are all closed. I would breathe in and I would imagine the energy of my circle, my sphere of art now, being drawn back in as though I were erasing it. You could think of it that way. As I'm retracing my steps, sunwise fashion, I'm drawing up that energy. You could even imagine it as though you're peeling back a layer or peeling back a veiling and exposing the physical world and the mundane place that you are inhabiting for this work. And I'm drawing that energy up, moving slowly around the circle, coming back once again to point A, to the east, taking a deep breath in, and then allowing all of that energy to drain back, envisioning the blue flame to drain back into the Great Mother herself. The energy will help to nourish and support and enliven her, and it will also help to purify and eliminate that separation that we've created, especially if you're doing this in a space that is used by other people or even used by you in other ways. You always want to make sure that whatever you lay down, you also clean up and take back, and offering it to the Great Mother is a great way to do that. If you've done the sphere or the ball of light that is around you, the easiest way to draw that back in is exactly the way you set it out there. So with each inhalation, I imagine those streams of light to be coming into me. Each inhalation, I imagine it collapsing further and further and further around me. And each exhalation, I imagine all of that purified energy that contains everything that was juicy and wonderful that I did within it, now filling all the spaces of my body, filling every cell, every corner, the ends of my toes, the ends of my fingers, all in a way that will be enlivening and also purifying to me as well. So you see, creating sacred space is something that we choose to do, that we can use in a way that can be very positive and productive and supportive of our work. But it's not necessarily everything that we have to do all the time. There are times when we don't want to create that barrier of separation, where the work that we do, we want us to be out there, we want the world to be as we see it, and we want the energy that we can draw up within ourselves to mix and fuel with that in a different way. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and this little exploration of creating sacred space. In future videos, I will actually do one that will show the mechanics of this when I have an opportunity also for something a little longer. And I hope you are enjoying this 13 days walking the witch's path. We're almost nearing the end of it, and I hope you've gotten some really good information from it that you can use and that will inspire you to continue setting foot on this path. Many blessings, and hopefully you can go out and enjoy some beautiful sacred space today as well. Blessed be.